31 vintage items worth money. How much is your old stuff worth? Marie Kondo convinced many a pack rat that parting with unnecessary material possessions can spark joy. You know what sparks even more joy? Learning. 1. Typewriters. If your grandparents passed down a working pre-1940s model typewriter, it could be worth as much as $800 today. When it comes to typewriters, the older it is, the more value it has. 2. Silverware. Did your mom keep her polished silverware ready for holiday use? If she inherited a set from her parents or grandparents, it could be worth a lot. A complete antique set of real silverware can be worth hundreds of dollars today. 3. Rotary phones. Chances are your parents held on to one of these just in case they needed it. If they gave you one of the rarer models, hang on to it. It could be worth several $100s nowadays. 4. Beanie Babies. If you've saved yours all these years thinking it was worth thousands, you're probably going to be disappointed. However, if you get your hands, you could sell them and make a small fortune. 5. Vinyl records. You don't need an excuse to dig out old vinyl records and enjoy great music. Just know that some of the records you're listening to could be worth thousands if you choose to sell them. 6. Vintage wedding dress. If your mom held on to her wedding dress hoping to pass it down to future generations, it could be worth more than she originally paid. Not your style of dress? You could offer to sell it for her and make $250 or more. 7. Record player. If you have a working vintage turntable, you may want to polish it up and sell it. Good ones sell for $500, $600, but great ones can sell for up to $3,500. 8. Original Fiestaware. Many people owned a set, but did your family have a real set or a knockoff? Have a complete vintage set? It can go for as much as $1,500. 9. Retro video games. Remember all that time you spend playing video games? If you kept any of them, they might just pay off. Games like Mario Kart 64 sell for hundreds now, and if you never opened the package, it could be worth several thousand. 10. Boy Scout memorabilia. Was your dad a Boy Scout? If he earned any merit badges, collectors will pay hundreds of dollars for them. If he never used the patches, they'll be worth even more. 11. Crayola crayons. Did Grandma keep a set of crayons in her cabinet to entertain the grandkids? If passed down a box with vintage colors, it could be worth as much as $500 today. 12. Old magazines. 14. Signed yearbook. Did you go to school with someone who later became famous? If they signed your yearbook, it could be worth. Consider taking it to an appraiser to find out. 15. Vintage cookbooks. As if we didn't already love Julia Child enough, there's a chance she could make you some money. 14. Signed yearbook. Did you go to school with someone who later became famous? If they signed your yearbook, it could be worth. Consider taking it to an appraiser to find out. 15. Vintage cookbooks. As if we didn't already love Julia Child enough, there's a chance she could make you some money. If your parents kept a copy of her original cookbook published by Knopf in 1961, it could be worth several hundred now. 16. Antique tools. Old woodworking tools were built better then than they are now. That means they may be than modern tools are. If you have any vintage hand drills, saws, or wrenches, collectors will pay hundreds for tools in good working order. 17. Antique lunchboxes. Did you keep your vintage metal lunchbox from your childhood school days? If you kept the thermos, it's worth even more. 18. Vintage purses. Does your mom have a vintage Chanel purse in her closet that she no longer uses? Used handbags can be worth more than twice their original price. 19. Pyrex and Tupperware. Almost every mid-century kitchen had a set of Tupperware, and if your mom kept hers, it could be worth upwards of $1,000. Pyrex bowls are also in hot demand. Depending on the year and style, some Pyrex dishes fetch up to $1,000 by themselves. 20. Antique quilts. Does Grandma's quilt line the back of your couch? You may be holding on to a rare find. Some of the most sought-after patchwork quilts sell for thousands today. Consult an appraiser to see what yours is worth. 21. Porcelain dolls. Do you have any vintage or antique dolls tucked away in a box somewhere? If it's in perfect condition, there's a serious market for it. Some of the most valuable porcelain dolls go for $1,000 to $3,000 or more. 22. Clocks. Remember that fancy wall clock at Grandma's house? If you inherited it, you might want to take it for an appraisal. Antique clocks are especially valuable if they have a trademark and can sell for several $1,000s if they're in perfect working condition. 23. Vintage toys. It may surprise you which vintage toys are valuable these days. If you kept any name-brand dolls, you could be holding on to a small fortune. Some vintage toys can be worth hundreds to several $1,000s. 24. Mid-century small appliances. Who knew your mom's old toaster could be worth hundreds of dollars? And that Oster blender she's had for decades? If it's been fully restored, it's worth several times what she paid for it back then. 25. Vintage advertising signs. Replicas of vintage advertising signs are all the rage now, but if your parents happen to have kept an original sign, it could be worth some money. Vintage metal signs from name-brand companies can go for several $100s. 26. VHS tapes. Believe it or not, some of those you were tempted to toss could be worth serious money. Be glad you hung on to them because some collectors will pay hundreds of dollars for certain videos. 27. Rocking chair Windsor rockers are especially popular, and if the one in your house was passed down through the generations, you could be sitting on a small treasure, quite literally. Some vintage rockers are worth hundreds of dollars. 28. Artwork. Many treasures have been discovered in attic boxes, so if you've got old artwork stored in yours, take it to an appraiser. You could be holding on to the next unknown masterpiece that could be worth thousands. 29. Cookie jars. Talk about a sweet deal. If you're the proud owner of an antique cookie, it may be worth up to $300. Better yet, a truly rare vintage cookie jar from the 1940s to 1960s can go for a few thousand. 30. Vintage luggage. Most people have ditched their old luggage for new, modern versions with wheels. If your family kept their mid-century set and it's in good condition, it could be worth hundreds now. 31. Fine china. While porcelain dinnerware is usually inexpensive, a set of fine china could be worth quite a bit. Take Grandma's collection to an antique appraiser to get an expert opinion.